Cool.
One halftime show.
But why not?
Oh, let's not go into the camera.
Says the cutest chick in the room. Well, maybe. Okay, maybe. I shouldn't speak for everybody.
Yeah.
30-second delay.
Oh, so we get to hear my stupid laugh.
How do I stop that feedback though?
So,
I think that's even nice.
Nancy,
I know,
is
right?
the one dated 2/19, the latest and greatest.
Yeah, it's the one with all the red writing in it.
Did you say you want to go to sit right here?
Jody can sit right in the middle, yes, yes, actually.
Sounds good.
Jody, do you want me to move this table back there, or are you good there?
Good here, unless they need the spot for somebody.
All right, we can't quite get everybody on.
Even better.
See anybody logging in yet? Do you know yet?
I know Brad will, but he probably won't do it till a little after 4 because his students don't leave till 4:10. That I know. He might try to log on a little bit early before they're dismissed, but
But
that'll.
if we did, I think if anybody kind of just said, oh, there's people waiting, I mean, we should hear the beat, but, you know, just let me know.
Right, and so I know Brad's gonna log in, and I know Juliana's gonna log in.
Okay.
Those are the two that I'm certain are gonna log in.
Right. Charmaine did ask for virtual, so she may as well.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, I forgot about you.
How are you doing?
Hanging in there, ish.
The address phone usually is not that stressful.
Oh, no.
Last time.
She's not. She's like, yeah. So they got. Well, yeah, that's what I heard. Who's there?
Did you go to the Vanderbilt one?
I have not yet. I've been trying to get there.
I enjoyed it immensely, but I thought it was too crowded. I was uncomfortable.
That's the story.
But I did go the weekend, so I shouldn't have it. I know it is October and Valentine's. Isn't it? That's what I feel like. No, it is not. That clock is wrong. Don't
Yeah,
be- I can't be looking at that clock up there.
It's 3:59 according to mine.
Yeah. But I
Both
did
devices.
enjoy it.
So, I mean, I know hopefully this is our last go around for this, but for the future bargaining sessions, 4 o'clock is too early for many of our people. It's just too early. They can't get here in time.
Well, and middle school people. for certain.
Middle school, definitely. It's a struggle for,
I got out at like 3:20 by the time I was able to.
yeah,
get
I mean,
out
most
of
people
Clearwater,
can't, you
so
can't get out.
across.
So again, absolutely just let us know that. I think you had called a meeting up to at 4, so we
Yeah.
assume that. So, again, just let us know. Yeah. Who is that?
And nobody, middle school teachers.
It's rude.
You're so shell shocked by the other day.
I tell you, it is hard to get middle school people who are,
Is that-
it really is. Get them in
There's
on.
Juliana.
Juliana.
And then is Brad in there?
I know it's Jeff Solichak.
Mhm.
Oh, who's the top one in the,
That's me.
oh, that's you.
Jody. This is the second.
Gotcha. So Dr. Corbett, I heard that you and Nancy got into a tussle and that's why you have the mark on your head.
I just finally got my stitches taken out today.
Yeah.
Just, stop giving me a hard time.
She's a clean and a dirty.
So at this time, do you think everyone who's face-to-face, who is attending, do you think is here?
Nick, Janet's not here yet. Nick Amheiser said he would be late because he's middle school. And I think that's it. It would be because Kristen had to be, she should be showing up online. She asked for virtual. I sent
That's
it
right,
to her.
forgot about her. Because she tested positive.
She's
in
positive, so
She's
she
in
can't.
quarantine.
She's at home.
I just don't get just because. I haven't had to take a test in a long time, just because.
And Juliana, can you hear us okay online? Excellent.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
In stereo.
I'm gonna close you down a little bit.
And I'm not even talking loud.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, well, it is 4 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So just, thank you. I do have I was just starting a sign-in sheet, so I'm gonna start passing that around. So we know that you received the last proposal last Friday for you to review. I know that you have done that. We have heard that we are close to an agreement, so over the next hour or so, we'd like to hear from you, your thoughts, what your thoughts are on the various sections. As social distance class size seems to be the biggest stumbling or block, or the area that we have the most, just discussion to have. We thought we'd start with that, and that's on page 7 of the proposal at least. So maybe if we could just start with that, and we'll start there.
Okay. Well, we definitely are very appreciative that that the class sizes for the simultaneous the goal is to get them to the same face-to-face numbers. And I think it needs to be that way for the simultaneous non-core as well, to try to keep those, because some of those classes are in larger rooms, because it is understood even by the class size amendment that the non-core classes are not limited the way core are. But the problem is many of them are in regular size classrooms. And since the 3 feet minimum for the social distancing is very close, as it is, I just think we have to watch those numbers very carefully, because those rooms cannot really accommodate those kind of numbers. Like the larger rooms, and a lot of electives do have larger rooms, and it's not an issue. But I did hear from a health teacher today who's in a regular size room, and she's got 36 in there and 11 online, and they're really close to each other, and she's worried. It's making her nervous.
And I just add that we
we appreciate that, and that's why we have in 16 that teacher should exercise that remedy to reduce. If we're violating the social distancing, then that's the remedy.
Right. And that is what I told her, that
Okay.
she could, and I know she is working with the administrator and they are, but initially she was told, well, there's nothing I can do, there's no other class. Because the other class, the other option for that subject was just as jammed. So, I get that problem when it's like, I got one or two extra kids and both classes are filled to the brim. We get it. I know that that's the problem. But I just think if the CARES money comes through, and I did mention that if the CARES money comes through quickly, I do think that some of that needs to be to try to find, to isolate those problem areas and try to get another body in there and split those classes up. I know we're not looking to hire a ton of new people, but we really need to alleviate some of those problems.
Are you suggesting we wait on the MOU for the CARES money?
No, I know. No, I'm just saying that I think that we need to start hiring some people because some of these classes are overloaded and there really is nowhere for them to go. And I get the administrator's issue. The only solution for those very crowded classes would have been a third health teacher, but he or she does not exist in that building. So it's something that needs to be looked at in those cases where they're already over stuffed and there's nowhere for them to go. There is no other
So
class.
I think that's what we were attempting because of the unknowns, and it's one here and one there.
Mhm.
So that's why we went and added that 16, that those steps would be, and that's one of, like the one you explained, right? It would be gone to administration and most likely probably general manager for playoffs and things like that to work with that teacher to remedy by the options that we've had talked about here. So
Right,
I think
and
we addressed.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the non-core classes?
I'm talking about the non-core right now because that's who happened to call me today. And the non-core do have higher numbers and they're not helped at all by the class size amendment. So they're already over what we,
Just one thing. So
yeah.
What we're saying is to do 40 face-to-face, 45 simultaneous, and 50 MyPCS online,
Mhm.
and you still have to adhere to number 16.
Right. But right now, the simultaneous non-core class that called in to me has 48,
How many
students.
face-to-face?
36.
So if we took all of the simultaneous kids out, I guess I get confused about the impact. I don't know. Are you suggesting, are you suggesting that we take any kids who are over the 45 and we redo their semester schedule before we, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
If it comes down to it.
If that's the only, if there's nowhere else for them to go. I mean, this administrator did say, he looked at the other health class and the other health class was also over as well. So he just
So,
didn't.
So if we're gonna go there, Nancy, I think we gotta talk about it in the core classes. Are you suggesting the same thing? So, I mean, just to be clear, that could require 10,000 schedule changes.
It's not that many.
I don't think it would be that many. I think that,
We
because
checked
there's
in-
just
we checked
extreme
in our secondary
circumstance. There's
schools.
not, every class is not overloaded.
So we checked in our secondary schools, and it impacts 20, 30, 40, 50 sections per school. So it's not a small number of sections. We're talking about huge numbers of sections. And once you start changing, if I'm trying to fix this class that has 3 over, it's not just 3 kids, because you might start bumping into other classes. So we are talking about thousands of schedule changes.
Mhm.
So that's why what we proposed was we get it, we understand what the target's going to be. We won't add to any of those classes, but as we have, because we do schedule changes every week as kids come and go and things happen. As we have those, we would work to reduce them, but to start the day we sign this, in order for us to accommodate what you're saying, we can research and get you a number, but I'm thinking it's gonna be 10,000 schedule changes.
Well, I know that the question that you had asked was about how it affected working conditions. I mean, simultaneous teaching
It's hard.
is much, much harder
Yep.
than either of the other two options. The other two options are stressful enough. They're very,
But I
we
would
know
argue
that.
simultaneous teaching with 25 kids in your class total is hard, and 30 is hard, 35, they're all hard.
It's never going to be easy, of course not.
So we
But-
were asking you to define the impact of those extra 3 kids.
Right, time multiple periods if it is in secondary. But it's also, it's less, different lesson planning for both sides. Tests have to be done differently. Any teacher will tell you, in even just a live classroom, one kid can make an enormous difference. One kid can just change the whole dynamic and you're suddenly not able to control the group. This is so difficult to do because you've got discipline issues going on right in front of you. They're still kids. You're still going to have those discipline issues. And you have the kids online who need your attention. There are tech issues there, and then the face-to-face kids get ignored and they start acting up because, again, any teacher will tell you, sometimes just turning to the whiteboard or whatever to put one word up, your whole class explodes. It's like, really?
We understand that simultaneous teaching is harder than face-to-face, or we understand that. What I'm asking though is, if, let's take a middle school class where the cap face-to-face is 26.
Mhm.
Let's say I have 20 kids face-to-face and I have 6 online. So I got 6 of the kids simultaneous.
Right.
That's hard, that's difficult, that's all the things you just said apply. I want to know what's the impact of adding 4 kids to that class. If that teacher has 30, instead they have 20 face-to-face and 10 online. So now we're talking about what is the impact of those 4 extra kids who are online. And that's the part where we're struggling with. It's hard. Yeah, we get it. It's hard.
I see what you're saying. Any extra kids in your class is more work. Or you could just not grade assignments. I mean, most teachers aren't opting for that. I mean, the more number of kids you have, the more kids you have to take care of, to learn about.
We agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything multiplies as soon as you have more people.
What we're saying is the solution we proposed was something that we thought was doable. You know, understanding that right now we are in the throes of developing master schedules for next year, right? So it's not like we have people sitting around not doing anything who can just all of a sudden, if we want to sign this tonight, that could tomorrow go do 10,000 schedule changes. In order to do the schedule changes, it's going to take time, and not to mention the fact that if we do a schedule change just because we're one over here, it's not in the best interest of that kid. Right? Doing schedule changes when you're 6 weeks in there, however many weeks are into a semester, that's not the best thing for the kid. It may be the best thing for the adults, but it's not the best thing for the kids. So, you know, that's why we were comfortable saying, we get it. We understand. We absolutely hear what you're saying. We understand that we would like the simultaneous classes to be the same size as face-to-face. In many cases we are, but in many, many, many cases we're not. And so we think the logical way to approach it is to say, okay, it's capped as of today, and none of them that are over will go any higher, they'll only go lower. But we will do it as we're doing the schedule change.
Okay, but if they are already over the agreed number, they will be changed immediately.
No,
Just saying.
that's what I'm saying, we can't agree to that.
Do
So
we know how many that is, Dr. Corbett?
No, when we've asked the executive directors, and when they looked at it, I know Rita got to the second school and said, forget it, it's too many. She got like, the first school was like 30-something, the second school was 40-something sections.
Section.
So you'd have to go into each section then, and you'd have to figure, well, so which kids am I going to move? And you know, it's not a small task. It's not something, I mean, it would be virtually impossible for us to do it, probably even in a week.
So
Not to mention what we're doing to kids. I mean, you know, we're here to, our job is to teach kids, and, you know, so it would be such a disruption for so many kids. We don't even think it's educationally smart.
well,
We all get how we got here, right? I mean, we got.
No,
here because-
I understand, but let's not get into what's educationally sound, because this number of children in a room, pandemic or not, is not educationally sound, but we've been doing it for years. So I don't think we can get into what's educationally sound, because none of these numbers hold up in real life to back that idea up. I'm just saying that in a simultaneous non-core class like this person's, this person who was non-core and has already 48, when it's 45 is what we are agreeing to. So you're saying their only option would be, and there's nowhere else to put them, so they can't move them to another teacher. Because there is,
We would have to do schedule changes.
you,
right? And you would just have to either
you would have
find
to,
another health
or
class
change their room, if there was an available bigger room. If there's no available bigger room.
This is different, and so this is a cap.
Yeah, I think we're conflating these two issues. So if these 48 people are in a room where they're closer than 3 feet, what we propose is we would make, if the option is not too bad, the option is to follow the process in paragraph 16. And if that required a schedule change because the social distancing was not 3 feet, then we would make that schedule change. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so there are two different issues. If the social distancing is beyond 3 feet and there's 48 people in the class, which exceeds 45, we would gradually work toward that goal, but we're not going to do it upon execution of this agreement because that would require way too many schedule changes across the district. But we will do it if it's a health problem because of the proximity. So the person that contacted you, if the concern is kids are on top of each other, we'll then bring that to our attention and we will follow that process that we're trying to come to an agreement to.
Ginger?
Well, my question would be, using that example, continuing that example is, I received 5 new students today from other schools and from out of the area. So everybody has to take hope. Okay, so the new kids come in, where do they go now? Where do they go? I mean, those 2 classes are already over the cap and you're trying to reduce, and that's just one example, but where are those kids gonna go now?
They're not going to go in one of those 2 classes that are already over. So they may not be able to take hope face to face. They may have to take it virtually. But one of the things that we do all the time is we always count the kids who come in, but we don't count the kids going out. Right? Since the 10-day count, our high school population has not gone up, it's gone down. And it gradually, it just trickles away. In second semester, it continues to trickle away. We lose kids, we don't gain kids. Total, right? That doesn't mean that you don't have an individual teacher who gets kids added, but as a school by school and as the whole district, we are losing kids, not gaining them as the year goes on. So it just becomes a master scheduling problem as new kids come in. If we set this as the parameters, then we don't put a new kid into a class at 48 where we said the cap would be 45.
So in one of these incarnations of this document, we did have with teacher permission, because there are teachers who will take more kids in than what is allowed. I used to be one of those teachers, so I know they exist, and there's plenty of them. That's why I would say ask around, because sometimes the teacher will say, yeah, sure, 1 more, I can do it, I can handle it. Where somebody else it might cause a real struggle. And I would say we should be including that in part of the equation, that ask the teachers, because sometimes you're going to get an answer that you want.
In one of these versions, you had asked us to take that out, and we thought, well, if the teacher agrees, it doesn't really matter anyway, so we took it out because you asked us to. So if you want to put it back in,
I don't think we took that out. Did we take that out? No, we didn't take that out. Because,
We had it in.
we had it in there.
We put it in there.
We put it in there. We liked it, but we took it out because we thought you asked for it.
I know that in,
I think when you rewrote it, it just kind of got changed.
yeah, because it was definitely
It
in the
was in our
last
last
one
one.
that Joanne had made and sent.
And if both sides are in agreement to have that, I think that's a great idea. Because for instance, like in my classroom, there's one class where the kids are 2 feet 9 inches apart, and that's just the layout of my room. And I understand that, and I've been vaccinated, and I keep in my cocoon, and I'm okay with it. So if you had teacher approval, that may solve some of the problem.
Yeah, it would definitely change.
So the issue that we were talking about, and I think we went back and forth a little bit, was whether the reduction has to occur immediately upon signing the MOU.
Right.
You said yes, we said we cannot do that. Are we in an agreement on this, or are we just, because whether it's with or without consent, we can put that back in, but the fundamental discussion is whether the classes are all going to be changed upon signing, or it's going to be gradual as we proposed.
So you said that you had numbers on how many it affected, that you said, and that was sections that you were talking about.
We didn't pursue because we thought it was undoable. But
As soon
if you want us to, we can go back and we can get numbers, schedules we would have to change. I think it's going to be a number that makes it, that we, I don't think it's doable.
But I want to know how many teachers are affected and what are our chances of getting some that just say, okay, leave it as is. That may reduce the number quite a bit of changes that need to be made.
But Nancy, once we put it in writing, a contract, we have to go do it. And so, like even now, if I ask the teacher, but if I ask Colleen, are you okay if I had 5 kids? And she could say yes, but boy, if we find a paper saying no, she can change her mind and we have to change it. We would have to do that. I know Colleen wouldn't do that because, we have to be in a position where we can implement what we sign. And that's our concern. That's why we wrote it the way we wrote it.
Can we caucus, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, we can. Go together down there so they can't hear. I turned the camera away from them. Okay. But otherwise you'll. No, you're right. If I shut it off, then it's off. Oh, maybe. No, that's what, they need to hire people. They need to hire people. What happens when everyone comes back next year? We're at 72%. What happens when everyone comes back? These numbers are way over class size.
Right, but will these still be in effect in the fall, or can we then start with something else?
No, it's totally full.
Right, so maybe we.
I can understand your point, and I can understand your point. And it is needed. And if we have someplace in writing, where what you just said, is they cannot, every school knows, they could not put those 5 votes, they would have to go virtual or take it the following year. And put that in the document, as well as insisting that everybody know that it's not one, whether it be a homeless person, somebody transferred or whatever, if it's already over to be given. What if
So why can't they make, why can't we ask the fact that, okay.
Yeah, I think it's good to give it to the fourth quarter. I agree. I think it's generous, but I think it's also something we will agree with. And don't forget, with number 16, we're already because of the size of the classroom.
So
Yeah,
here's-
keep that in mind.
It's not that limiting for class at 48 and we're at 50 Park. It's center to center.
Electric part?
Well, that's what she said. Center to center, stand there. Yeah. There's the 3 feet. We're pretty
Elementary
close.
3 feet and high 3 feet, high 3 feet is right next to each other.
Well, literally, it would be, even one. Yeah, I mean, I don't need, this is how close it is.
So yeah, that's why the 3 feet, center to center, I didn't want, I wanted shoulder to shoulder. That makes a little bit of difference, shoulder to shoulder. I noticed that. But all the superintendents went to 3 feet, so that was approved size of 10 before we even walked in the door. That's why 4 was never gonna fly. You know, that's what we asked for.
So what if we make sure that every school district knows that they can follow 16A and 16B, that they can demand a larger room? And let's first trouble up that, like you're saying, let's put out one fire, but let's make sure the smoke is smoldering on the others.
Right,
Make it an inconvenience, you know, okay, you want us to have 50 kids, I want a new room.
right.
I've got 2, I mean, not a lot, but I've got 2 that want new rooms now for the same reason they're elected.
I've actually gone out to the I have a bigger room for you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I told them, I said, as soon as
Make sure they know that
as
that's
long
an
as you
option.
know, that's you.
But
You yourself are the split.
But the problem is the non-core simultaneous, and non-core period. Yes, by the end of the year, we have fewer students, not a lot, but those elective classes don't change because those students aren't able to go those periods. The
That's
classes
what I
are
was trying to
always
say.
40
There's
to 60
nowhere to
students
put
and not.
You need to, they need to hire somebody in those, when they identify a trouble area like that, where you have only 2 health teachers and they're shailing.
Okay, so it might be,
Thanks, Ned.
We've got
or whatever.
for 16 and B, the help limit. We've got till the 4th quarter. That's very reasonable. For schedule changes, we've got the guarantee that they're not adding it.
And teacher.
And teacher, I think we're there.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm honestly.
So what was, let me see, it was, I'm trying to remember everything you said.
talking about little Mikey.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
He's not so little, 7.5
He is a puppy?
7.5. He's adorable.
He's very cute. He is cute.
Say it, you've got it. Between what you and Paula were saying. Yes, yes, yes.
Then I realized.
All right, so we can go with the 16A and B to help limit. We already know that that's already in place. That'll help limit the size of the classes normally.
16.
16 and B. We'd like to offer up till the fourth quarter to make schedule changes because we have 3 weeks left in the school in this 9 weeks. That'll be the week after spring break. So that's, I think that's ample time if they have to have schedule changes, that they will be able to get schedule changes implemented. We're not talking about overnight.
I think if we can aim for doing it by fourth quarter, as kids leave,
So
the
you're
move
talking about-
around can happen.
Are you talking about 16C, has to be done by the fourth quarter?
No, I think they're talking
Are you
about
talking about-
21, instead of saying as of the,
Are you talking about 18 and 21?
Right, exactly. The,
Yes.
the, not as of the implementation of the MOU, but 3 weeks.
Get it done by the fourth quarter?
By the fourth quarter.
so we're not going to exceed 45 as it right now, but
And, yeah, no
schools
additional
will
students.
work toward lowering these and will accomplish that by the fourth quarter. is
Yeah,
what you're
that's
saying.
exactly. And with, and you can't exceed it with a teacher agreement. The teacher
Yeah,
is willing to take that.
If the teacher says yes, then you can leave it as is.
Right,
We
work
don't
toward
have
it
to.
by the fourth quarter, but if the teacher agrees to keep the kids, then
Then it's a moot point.
the onus is on them.
Right. And if if they're offered, if there's an available larger room and the teacher doesn't opt for it, that's again on the teacher, it's the teacher's choice. As long as we have those options open to them, they have a say.
And the instance that Ginger brought up, where there were 5 new students, where you guys said they just wouldn't be put in those 2 classes, and that everybody that does schedules understands that they figure out another option, whether the student takes the class as a coach instead of sophomore year, senior year, or they go into virtual, whatever.
When it goes along, we just not adding the additional students up to 45.
I'm not sure we're gonna be able to do it. We'll have to go back and research this, but put your parent hat on. Right? You got a junior in high school who's been with the same teacher in the same class for 3 quarters, and we're gonna move them the last quarter. And my concern is if it winds up, we're gonna have to count how many we gotta do. If we wind up having to do this let's say if my number was correct at 10,000, and my assumption was that we would do, like 100 a week because it's just gonna natural happen at school with the ebb and flow of school. But if we all of a sudden have a 3-week deadline, that means there's gonna be a whole bunch of them that it's not because of the parent asking a schedule change or a kid moving, it's because we are doing a schedule change now. I'm not sure this is gonna be doable. We can take it back and research it. We can figure out how many we think it'll be.
But you're also going to need to ask those teachers, because a lot of those teachers may say, I'm okay.
Which is going,
Which is fine, but there are a lot of them.
Right, and a lot of them aren't going, and again, I'm gonna go, that's a kind of a good example that, oh yeah, I'm fine today, but then in a week when I've had enough and, whatever, now I don't want to, now we've assumed and we've said, okay, there's only X number. Now we've just increased it with a 3-week time limit and so forth. So I'm a little hesitant, I'm just looking at that, I'm a little hesitant on that.
We can take it back and
Yeah.
research it, but
Well, as soon as that parent finds out that the social distancing is under 3 feet apart,
it's not true.
it is not, you're not 3 feet
Yeah,
apart.
that you're assuming that the parent would.
I think the parent might understand that those classes have to be moved around. You said, put your parent hat on, and that's where I would
When
be.
you start talking student safety, then.
Again, I think we're conflating it. If the safety issue, if the social distancing isn't met, then something needs to be done, whether it's changing a room, moving furniture, or schedule change.
Correct.
So in those cases where social distancing can't be met, then yes, a schedule change would occur if that needs to be done. We're talking about cases where it's not a social distancing issue, but it's currently over 45. And by fourth quarter, a kid has been in a class this entire year, and now we're going to make schedule changes. We can take a look at that to get a number. But last time you met with all the executive directors, it was not something that they could accomplish. But that was like right away.
I'm
We
just
don't know
wondering
about.
where the concern was for all these schedule changes and students and parents and things, when you allowed all those students to come back in big groups from online, that was extremely disruptive, more than once at the secondary level.
We didn't,
And
it
I
wasn't
didn't
we
see-
allowed them, we were required to invite them back and put them in.
Right, but it became, they could come back anytime, and that's when the issue.
Right, right. I
Because
think
that's
Ginger,
what
Ginger's
the order
referring
said.
to the first semester before it was required.
Which, that's part of the reason we know that we're gonna have schedule changes as we move along, because every week parents can make these choices and they come back. When that happens, that's when we have some flexibility to make sure that if we have 46 in the class, and we say, okay, this kid's coming back from simultaneous, I'm not putting them back in that class, I'll give them a different schedule, because they made the choice.
Yeah, because I mean, I do, you know, I know that is what was happening, it was happening daily, all through, I would say toward the end of the first quarter. It was daily, that there were changes, everybody was changing constantly, moving kids around. And then when PVS had to shrink, a lot of those kids came back. And it's just the disruption of the student, I get it. It's not ideal.
We understand what you want, so we will go back and research this and see if we can accommodate. I'm just telling you, I don't see us being able to accommodate that. So we'll go back.
By
and
the
get a
fourth
number.
quarter.
The fourth quarter, I mean, I don't have a calendar, but how many more weeks is?
3.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
It's the week after spring break.
So the Monday we get back from spring break?
April Fool's Day begins the fourth quarter.
Okay.
No
There you go,
fooling.
thank you.
No fooling.
Okay. All right, so okay, all right.
So by April 1.
What was the, what other issues do we need to talk about?
Okay.
The notification is an issue.
What pages?
The notification I thought was already resolved.
We added language on page 4.
Yep. Page 4.
About how long do you anticipate that research would take you?
3 or 4 days. When we do this, we first start with the executive directors who have to go identify it, and then we wind up having to talk to every principal. to Find out, all right, you've got, you know, Darlene Leva, we've just looked at your schedule. It looks to us like you've got 28 sections and it impacts this many kids in each one. Tell us what it would look like at your school to try and do the schedule change. And we got to go through, and again, like I said, we're still doing school, we're doing all the things we're doing to try and get ready for next year, so it's you know, it's not that we can devote full time to it, but
And we also have COVID, all the
Yeah.
requirements for CDC.
Yep.
I mean, as far as St. Pete High goes, well, first of all, Darlene, amazing. But I mean, if it came right down to it, I could go over and look at the master schedule and tell you what the results of that would be within a half a day. But that's just because I have access and she and I work well together.
I mean, obviously, my hope was that we could get this signed by tomorrow. I was hoping that we could wrap this up tonight, make these last changes, and sign tomorrow, although you'll run vacation tomorrow, aren't you? You sign
But
on
I'm
Monday.
still reachable. They know how to get it to me.
you can sign it the way we said it. I mean, that section, we're not gonna be able to change that tonight or by tomorrow. That's gonna take us time to, and I'm not holding out hope that we're gonna.
I just don't understand. I'm just a little confused about why why this wasn't. My emails were very clear about what the issue was. So I'm just not sure why the research wasn't already done, knowing that we were meeting tonight.
Our responses were very clear on what we were able to do. And so it was very clear of what we were able to do and what we were not able to do.
I mean, we commit to working to reduce those numbers. We have committed to that in the language.
Yes.
So are we,
So what is the problem there? Just the deadline, having a deadline of trying to get it
That's the
done?
deadline, yeah. Because when we sign this, we're not just talking about Colleen's class or one class. We're talking about every section, in every school in the county. We are contractually obligated to do something by April 1st. you know, so we're not gonna sign it unless we feel very, very confident we can do that.
So these instances, I'm trying to sum it up. So the teachers that are over, that there's not socially distancing, those are going to be taken care
Yeah.
Number 16.
By
16 taken
16.
care of, and we've been doing that.
of. Okay. And the teachers that say it's okay,
They're-
that's,
They will not be bringing
That
it,
won't be a
that won't,
problem.
they won't be saying, hey, number 16 affects, they're gonna go on and do what they're doing, right?
okay. So the issue is the peoples whose classrooms that it's over the number, but there's not a social distancing problem.
Correct.
I just want to get it all
Yeah.
clear.
And who
Mo-
don't
Most of the
consent.
problems are the simultaneous, online kids. Is we got 3 or 4 extra online kids. And remember how we got there? Because first semester, we had a different set of numbers we could use. And so as we were building master schedules first semester, in order to reduce the number of face-to-face kids in classrooms, when we had a simultaneous section, we went up to the limit because that lowered the numbers that we had in face-to-face. So I mean, we got there for a good reason. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to undo what we did first semester. And I'm just saying, we can't do it all at one time. We're more than happy to agree to the targets and say, as we're doing master schedule changes, as kids come and go, we'll work toward getting there. But, you know, I mean, I don't want to build out false hope either that, you know,
We're
we'll
not doing it
research
at one
for 3 or 4
time.
days, go back, oh, it's going to be easy.
We're not doing it all at one time. This is still February, and we have a deadline of April 1st.
Right, it's,
I'm telling you,
It will
Lee,
be.
I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be instances where we don't meet the deadline by the end of the school year. You know, we have some schools where there's very, very little turnover. The kids have a much more stable pattern than other schools. In those schools, if we're 5 over in 30 classrooms, and we did that because we were trying to lower face-to-face first semester, the only way to do that is just to disrupt the whole master schedule and just rip the Band-Aid off. And I don't think that's in the best interest of kids right now.
So what about having it as a soft deadline? That it's not, if you don't do it by April 1st, you're violating the
That's
contract.
exactly how we wrote this. We wrote this saying.
No,
it
there
the-
is-
It is the target, and we'll work on it immediately as we do schedule changes, and that gives us a soft deadline.
We have to target the.
A target deadline, which means you may, because you said some of these will not be able to be resolved till the end of the year. And-
so let me ask you this, would it satisfy you if in paragraph 21, we said schools will work to lower those classes to the limits set forth in paragraph 17 as they make schedule changes and will try their best to do it by April 1st?
Yeah,
Okay. Understand, though, that there may be the case that it doesn't work out, and will try their best.
So that's
right,
Paragraph 18 refers back to paragraph 17, and paragraph
right,
22 refers back to, or 21 refers back to 20.
right. Because I just
Separate schools.
want it understood by, because different administrators, yes, different administrators would say, oh, I don't really have to do this because there's no timeline. And others will actively be doing it. I get, I just wanted it to give them some goal to try to get it done by then.
If you see a number, you may do 4 or 5 times
Yes,
as opposed to just having it out there as a.
yes, it gives you something to work toward and realize that if you can't leave them all just like that till the end of the year. Stop messing her up.
So let me just talk out loud to make sure what I'm describing to her is what you guys think we said.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Paragraph 18, the simultaneous core classes, the target we're aiming for is the same as face-to-face.
Right.
And we will try to get there as quickly as we can. For paragraph 21, the target is 45, which is 5 over the face-to-face one.
Mm.
And we have the same thing, we'll try to get whatever language you just said,
Okay.
Mhm.
but it's 2 separate paragraphs.
Right, so then that's wrong, right? It's not. 17 is.
Apparently, it's a, local
Well, I think
work.
it's just that's the.
Yeah, that is wrong, that is wrong, yeah. Yep, that is wrong.
So that should be,
That should just be refer back to the 45. I see what you're, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we probably cut and paste this when we were doing it. From here.
Okay, so that should be 45. All right.
All right, so are we done with,
Lori, would you say exactly what you said, please? At the
Uh,
end of 21? We'll
Yeah,
try their
schools will work to lower those classes to the limits set, or to the limits of, or to 45, as they make schedule changes, and we'll try to accomplish this by April 1st.
So we try their best, right? Right? They will try their best.
Yeah, try their best.
Good point, Mike.
Yeah. Everybody has a different best.
We might want to put this in there, though.
There is no
is that
try there.
We're not going to go out and intentionally make class changes for this. We're gonna- As we're making class changes.
I get, yes, I get that.
Here, leave it the way you have it.
Yep. All right, so you wanted to talk about the
We added language.
early notification?
Regarding notification, yeah.
Page is that one?
4,
Paragraph L.
Yeah. I liked the language. And I didn't hear back from, I did hear back from some. I liked, I thought the language was what we wanted.
Are you good with that?
The only thing I had in that section was a typo in number 3. In that whole section. That's the only thing I had.
Is that a yes?
Could you explain where it is?
I wrote typo in last sentence. It says whether the employee is an organized and self-directed worker. There's
I'm so sorry, what
extra comma.
do you want?
That's beyond, that. It's,
We're on page 4.
Yeah, we're on
letter
4.
L.
Under protection.
yeah, you're talking about, right,
I'm
it's
on the
under,
other one.
yeah, you're under additional
Sorry, I'm
protection.
on the next section. Ignore me.
So
Carry on.
are we in it, or so are we in it?
So we're looking at L.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, the letter L that was added
Jumped
in.
ahead, sorry.
Shh, she's always one of those kids, you know, who's always ahead of the other kids.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
I think-
1L.
I think I think that captures exactly what we were asking for. So yes, I was very, and thank you. I was very, very pleased with that when I read it. I think I might have done a silly little dance. But that happens every day at some point.
Right, so
So
what
the
else?
other sections, was there anything else in here? I mean.
The language that you added about the masks,
Give me a
the-
page. Is it the same page on the bottom?
same
Yes,
page,
yeah.
the correction to M, like, the correction to M. If the redirection occurs at least 3 times by the teacher and the student still does not comply, they will be removed from the class and the administrator will contact the parent guardian. And if the refusal continues, then it moves to the area superintendent.
That
So
was your suggested language. So
Yes.
yeah, okay.
I think
Yes.
we
it was, I said, the entire mask policy was fine because it was from the original plan. The only thing we wanted added is that while this is going on, after the teacher has dealt with it 3 times, that kid can't be in there because then he becomes a danger.
Okay.
So that was it. And that works for everybody, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And I also agree that if the teachers are spoken to and they are not wearing the mask, they do need to understand that leads to discipline as well.
Okay.
Because if we're going to do it for the kids, everybody in the school has to abide. I would love to know, and I know I don't have a say in this, but administrators need to be spoken to as well, because we have some problem areas there too. Because the teachers, I know, there are some.
Since they probably won't self-report, we'll rely on you to report to us.
You got it. We're on it.
We
So
can do
you
that.
pointed out, where's the typo that you were looking at?
Of course, I don't have the right,
You said under additional protection, right?
yes, under.
Where was it? Sorry.
I think it's corrected.
It could be, if it was just a typo, it didn't change the.
Okay, it was under 3, I think you
Yeah,
said.
it
Yes,
was something
and I-
about and, there was an and a comma on each side of the and. Instead of-
Whoever finds it, they get a.
Well, that might have been a red line issue. I don't know. Oh,
Okay.
and we have.
It was
collaborate.
corrected, I believe.
Yeah, I don't see it. Oh.
All right,
whether the employee is
Ooh,
organized and
Right.
self-directed.
so
I'm sorry, I do have a question from one of my team members over there on the screen. What happens to a child who takes off the mask and deliberately breathes on somebody?
Apparently that's happening.
Yeah.
Because that's
It has
happening.
happened.
This is,
Teachers should write a referral.
that's a discipline issue, right? Immediately goes right to discipline, just that's a referral issue.
Okay, what Ginger was talking about is there should be a comma after organized,
Thank you.
is an organized and a self-directed.
So Lori,
I have
the line up from the bottom with the end of the line.
I know,
So you just-
I know.
Click on the organized, no comment.
I don't see it.
This
You
one
see
has
it?
comment.
Okay, so next,
Colleen, you win the prize.
yeah.
You got it?
Colleen found it.
Colleen likes chocolate if you want to give her a prize.
Especially chocolate.
Page 3, paragraph 8, we added, we asked for additional protection for teachers who are properly tested at surgical masks.
Yep,
Yep.
that was perfect.
Over there.
We need to, is that, because I know that as a media person, you're in, there's multiple groups testing at the same time in secondary, usually in your area. Will the extra masks, do you think, be sufficient for when the proctors come in there?
I think we definitely need those. It's concerning.
Face shields or masks?
The surgical, the upgraded masks.
Surgical bench to put under this, so we can double up, because I've got 150 students at a time in a room, and that's a lot of air that I need to filter.
So that will work, okay, for the teachers who come into Proctor.
Yeah, and most media centers, cafeterias, gymnasiums are being used that way for testing this spring, so we're going to need that.
Okay, that works. So the only thing that was left were the few items that we spoke about, we resolved the simultaneous numbers. And so it was the simultaneous teachers getting that extra planning. And the secondary teachers are handled, they're handled. And even sometimes I forget, it's primary and whatever you call it, the upper level of elementary,
Big kids.
the big kids.
Intermediate.
Thank you. Even the intermediate are they can somewhat work it. It's the primary grades where they can't get any extra planning, and they tend to have the most meetings. They have way more meetings. All elementary has way more meetings than anyone at secondary, but they can't take an office day and have the kids work asynchronously. The older kids, intermediate, you might get away with that for half a day and get a little extra planning in. But the little ones, it's K-2 that's primary, you can't say to them, here, open this book, read this story, and I'll be with you in an hour. It's what can we do for them? What can we come up with to give them something so that they can get the additional planning that other levels are getting?
Mike?
This goes to Mike.
I thought you had the answer.
No, we said that they would be excused from meetings, but the administrators, they don't like that. That was our solution. The administrators want them in the meeting, so if they have to be,
$250 for primary teachers only. Just pay them for the plan.
Oh, that's gonna cause a shitstorm. I'm sorry. Do I get beeped every time I curse? Because that thing's gonna blow right off the table.
I would call issues, but I mean, yeah.
Cause issues, but we're, you
I don't know
know,
what else we can do.
How many meetings do they have a week in elementary? Is it
173.
two?
Yeah, it's 2 a week. Yeah. So.
No, I got it. I got it.
Well, we do have mandatory PLCs that we attend weekly, and then there is usually a curriculum meeting. once a week.
So it's 2 meetings aside from like parent meetings and
Correct.
stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? Which
that
are
is- that is
off, those
not
are different,
including
right?
Tier 3 meetings, IEP meetings, 504 meetings.
So how,
conferences.
this is the solution I think we had in the beginning, and it worked. Again, it worked at the secondary level, but is not working for
Never
them.
worked for them.
That they are excused from, I don't know, what do you think, 1 meeting a week?
We're not gonna do that. We've argued about this for the last 10 years, and finally, 5 years ago, when we changed the planning time, and we went to 5 meetings a month for secondary and then 8 for elementary, it was a huge sacrifice for elementary. And I don't know if you guys remember the argument we did. We argued like forever on that.
That took
So,
weeks.
You know, if primary is the ones who can't do asynchronous, I think we just acknowledge that they can't do asynchronous, and we gotta throw them a bone, and we gotta stand up to our secondary teachers and say, look, you guys can do asynchronous, they can't. It's a way to solve the problem where we're not harming instruction. I mean, our elementary principals, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, they're gonna push back hard if we try and tell them 1 meeting a month or a week.
You mean eliminating 1 week, 1 meeting?
One a week
Yeah,
out of the,
I just don't think we can do it.
2.
Well, just from my experience, my principal at the beginning of the year just had us doing PLCs. And then as we went through the year, she's like, hey, let's come back and sit down, because there is a lot of curriculum stuff coming out, and I need to have it back. If I don't need to have it, I won't have it, but if I need it, I've got to be able to have it. So, you know, but I know not all principals do
We
that.
told them the first 9
But I
weeks
do
don't
think-
have meetings.
right, yeah.
I worry about what all the other teachers are gonna have a fit.
Yeah, I'd probably word the same thing if I was you.
Well, they are,
I would,
because,
No, I mean,
because what,
Well, I think elementary, yes. I think secondary, you could explain it well enough, but I would worry about the upper level elementary.
I think
Are you
they,
doing this for all elementary, K through 5?
you were
No, I
saying
said
that it's
primary.
an issue with K-12,
Instead of
K-2.
primary size.
but then the principals have to understand that they get asynchronous time during their week with 3 through, what is it, about 5?
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, that they have to have times to go
Primary is really
asynchronous where they're not
Pre-K
instructing.
through 2.
The problem we're getting with because even at the secondary level, and this I think would happen more at elementary, I've heard from teachers that they can't do the asynchronous day because then they're off pacing. They cannot speed up, they can't get all the curriculum in. So, and I think that will be even worse for the intermediate elementary. They will have a tough time.
And you're honestly, at this point in time, we're in crunch time in elementary, because it's FSA season is right around the corner. So the crunch time means we're just
So
stuffing
we
our
had,
little
we
brains.
had this discussion when we reopened, and we came up with the language that's now in this proposed, and that's in paragraph 10, that anyone teaching virtually has the ability to incorporate asynchronous learning strategies the same as they would in a classroom setting. That seemed to work the first semester, and maybe it just needs to be reiterated. We
It
did
was-
bring that
No,
to the attention.
No,
was
we heard
always a high
immediately
school.
from the elementaries that we can't do it. And the principals themselves wrote to me and said they can't do it. That was, they never had it. Only secondary had it.
Elementary never had it.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, we've had meetings with our principals and this topic has been discussed, so.
I know, but the principals themselves wrote me, the teachers themselves wrote me, and saying, my principal says I can't do it. I spoke to the principal, sometimes the MSD did, and they said, no, they can't do it.
It's available, they just are having difficulty.
And first semester.
I'll tell you how to do it with first grades on Fridays if you want. I did it 20 years ago, but yeah.
So we do all, Nick, we do all elementary who teach synchronous, and give them $250. Based on what Ginger said, if secondary, you can make the argument secondary that it's different.
That they have access to that planning.
Classroom teachers who teach
Classroom teachers
synchronous
simultaneous.
or simultaneous.
Well, I would say 500.
No, can't do it.
What about when the CARES money comes in? Because it's coming soon.
We're not, we can't sign.
We don't know that we'll ever get that. this year.
I'm not, no, I'm just saying, we need to know that that CARES money is going to go to resolve some of these problems.
We don't know if we're gonna get a dime of that. The state could take all of that to supplement the FEFP. So until the legislative session, I mean, I don't think we'll hear anything until the legislative session.
I don't,
This MOU is for the balance of the school year.
I
so
understand.
Let's try to get it done or not done before the year ends.
I've never had my teaching suffer by missing one meeting a week.
I know.
Don't think it's a big deal.
Most of them done by email. 90% of them are by email. Yeah, it's above it.
It's gonna be a number.
For all elementary.
That would bring it to that number.
What about a $20 an hour for the remaining 18 weeks for all elementary, which brings it to $360 a teacher?
What do you mean by all elementary?
Who teach simultaneous?
Teach simultaneous.
Who teach simultaneous?
Who teach simultaneous, yeah. At the
That's
element,
1
all
hour a
elementary.
week that you're,
Let me be real, okay?
Could you let me run a report tomorrow to get that really good idea of how
Yeah.
many simultaneous we have?
Yeah, but I can tell you that the last time we talked supplements, I was willing to do it for all of them. And then a couple of days later, the governor's budget came out, and they're gonna fund us for 3,200 less students next year.
I know.
So to me, everything came off the table. When I just calculated what that would cost us, it's about $200,000 at 250. We don't have the $200,000. I'll just have to take it out of CARES and we'll have to do something about it. I'm not willing to go above that. I was trying to just find a way that we can, because that's the last issue we got. I was trying to say, let's just solve this issue, give them $250, let's sign it, let's move on. You want to go for more, I'm not doing it. There's too much uncertainty about what we have next year.
Well, to be honest, I don't like the idea of paying.
All right, then let's not do it.
I don't like, I mean, I would have done it if it was a reasonable amount. I don't like when you're paying some and not others. I don't think that that's equitable.
Let's not do it.
They can't be any more than 35, 40 minutes because that's the time that, right?
yeah,
They have.
literally 40 minutes.
Is it like, so we have 11 weeks. That is 2 meetings a week, 22 meetings, probably not quite that much. Is there any way to bring it from 8 to 6 a month?
Something to keep in mind too, is that, so to your point, right, we have like 11 weeks left. You have PLCs typically every week. You have your collaborative planning curriculum meetings, right, going on. But we're also getting into FSA testing and things like that, where a lot of these meetings are going to be canceled anyway. And there will be a reduction in meetings. I can't put a number on this, it's going to be different for every school probably, right? But there will be less meetings at some schools than others.
For part of the staff,
Yeah.
you'll have it, because, obviously your first and second grade teachers aren't gonna be sitting and learning how to give the FSA test, but your third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers will be sitting.
And we
in
can't
there.
cancel those meetings, right? They have to have those meetings.
They have to have the testing, meetings. It's one of those, and then we have retention meetings and all, I mean, I
Mike is
understand.
Mike is actually very accurate, and Paul, I think you can agree with this, I mean, the last quarter moves into the
Yeah.
retention meetings that we have, so other meetings are
Retention meetings,
canceled
getting-
because of.
You guys have other people that do your scheduling and stuff, and elementary has to figure out who's going in what rooms. So there's a lot that happens.
But it's not, but those aren't, like, I would never not include the teacher on a retention meeting, right? You
Yeah.
know, and they would yell at me if I didn't include them, right?
Yeah.
So it's really the,
Yeah. They end up shuffling, yeah, they switch out. It may not necessarily be a curriculum meeting, but you'll go in and you'll have your retention.
right, so they're not additional, you know, we cancel those meetings to be able to do the information that they need to. So it's not above and beyond, it's not added, you know.
I'm still at a CSO school, so I have extra meetings anyway, so
Right.
I can only imagine.
I'm like a fish out of water with this because I'm secondary. However, how many of the meetings that elementary have are not an interaction with all the people? It's just somebody, like a supervisor talking or somebody, one person talking.
The PLCs are just structured PLCs with teachers doing data chats, and that's what
Okay,
the principal's doing. It's not- I think we just stick with the language we have here, where you have the ability to try asynchronous, and if you're primary, your asynchronous time may be only 15 minutes at a crack, but you just incorporate a few more on Fridays whenever you can, and, like I said, we got 11 weeks to get.
What number is that on here?
Number 9, page
Number
6.
So there's like a person that's over like primary curriculum developers, there's somebody in addition to that.
There,
Why?
Right there.
welcome to Mike Feeney.
I'm about to suggest more with you, I'm sorry. To give out, potentially send out model lessons for asynchronous.
To do that.
activities?
So one of the things that we've been doing since day one is we,
Since last March.
all of our staff developers
Yeah.
are creating math, science, reading, writing lessons for the teachers that they can use. They literally are plug and play, pop on campus, there's a Nearpod lesson all set up for you.
And they're asynchronous.
If they can be, it depends on how you want to use it. You can do student led or live participation,
They don't have a record that they're offered.
What do you think? Is that
So, yeah.
fair?
We have those four.
Well, some people are
And
able
those
to
work
have
for your older
asynchronous and the others aren't. You're compensating those that
Are you
can't.
designing
I mean, so I could argue the issue both sides of the coin there.
Those ones are more teacher led, right? So when you're, if you're doing a simultaneous class, you say we're using Nearpod, you have the Nearpod lesson on the smart board, so the kids in the classroom can see it. I'm sitting here on my computer talking to the kids here and trying to do this. I think, but I'm making it sound much easier than it really is. But, you're doing that live lesson through a Nearpod. And continuing both through and doing live Nearpod versus student.
Anybody wants to, oh, we really can't do this, but anybody wants to, Mike would be more than happy to share with you. Those secondary people want to go to elementary and check it out. They'll be happy to.
I'm happy to have you in my room.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think maybe if you could encourage your supervisors to even let the principals know, maybe the synchronous teachers or the simultaneous teachers could use, maybe have a day where they're doing their Dreambox lessons and their iReady math and their Myon reading and finishing their iStation minutes, so you have a long chunk. The problem's gonna come with technology,
read that,
because we're not one-to-one in primary.
Wow.
That's kind of the other issue, in all honesty, is the tech is not there yet for primary.
But all the students that are at home have technology.
All the students that are home, but not necessarily
Nine.
the other part of your student simultaneous, you may not have.
Number 9.
Because you don't-
One-to-one
I mean,
with
you're not
the
gonna have downtime, even if you have my PCS students doing something online, you still have 15 kindergartners, right? That are not gonna give you any downtime.
No, not that. Not
Right.
I heard you say that you guys want to come to elementary.
Oh, they took that out.
Yeah.
They took
We
that.
got new teachers, right?
And they said it.
Then they'll agree.
I'm certified to do that.
They said it.
I'm not, and
You
don't
can
want.
survive first grade.
Thank you. I don't want to hurt that.
Herding cats. Herding cats is supervising a middle school principal meeting.
That I would love to sit down.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
Okay, so what's your pleasure on this? What's your pleasure on what they're talking about?
I,
Leave it as is or take the 250?
so What's the consensus, guys? Do you want the 250 for the, was it for all elementary was the last,
The
All
TJ Sinker.
simultaneous.
that teach simultaneous?
Classroom teachers,
I think that's.
simultaneous classroom teachers.
If we do accept it, just come at the very end of the year.
As of second semester, right?
Yeah.
Second semester.
Yes, because first semester there was a good reduction of meetings and that helped everybody. But that's just not helping right, now.
Because there's more teachers in elementary teaching simultaneous second semester than in the first semester.
Correct.
We don't want to do the first and second.
Right.
So if you're teaching simultaneous second semester in elementary in a classroom, then it's 250 supplement.
Okay,
Right, we'll work on this in the morning, get it typed up and sent over to you. So you can-
all right, so the last, there was, okay, we did not. We did talk about, I believe, Joanne was talking to you about the instructional personnel substituting stuff that we said does not really belong in the MOU because it was a contractual violation.
Well, that was your interpretation, and we canvassed it's being implemented inconsistently, but we agreed that we would pay anybody who has any instructional person who has been substituted.
Right, that they will be paid. But what about the ones in first, who did it all through the first semester and didn't get paid?
We're gonna do it, we're not going backwards.
No, it's a violation. No, so what do you want to just do what you planned?
If they, well, if they're gonna agree to first semester, then that makes the plan obsolete, because you're out of time frame. Because it's not ongoing, because they'll have rectified the problem. They'll have rectified the problem.
So are you willing to just take this?
I think it's a good faith effort and move this forward.
Okay. Do you know when they will be paid? Because that will be the question.
We've already told all the principals to put in the payroll adjustment forms going back to the first day of the semester.
Okay.
Not
And
all of them probably did it for the first payroll period, but
So it'll catch up.
it should be catching up.
okay. Walkthroughs. The walkthroughs conducted one person at a time. When we were having the discussion, you said, well, the principal of the school, like, let's say Mike is visiting a couple of elementary schools, and he wants to go around the building and the principal wants to go around with him into classrooms. That would make sense, and that's fine. But there is no reason for more than two. If someone's coming into the class for observations or walkthroughs in-house, it should always just be one. That's one at a time. But if they're coming from the district person and the principal of the site should be enough. Groups,
I'm sorry to interrupt because I didn't, go ahead.
The only thing I was gonna say is that there are times that, we're being asked right now to give feedback or provide support, like in math and things like that. So maybe myself and Lucas Tempe, who is my math content specialist, or Holly Slaughter, who is the ELA content specialist, the three of us may walk together sometimes, with.
And we have state visits where it's more than two, but we've instructed people to try and limit it to two, if at all possible. But there are times where there's times where we have to go over two, but it should be very seldom. In school-based, it should usually be one. But I'll tell you, when we have a new assistant principal, you want the assistant principal to go in with the principal so the principal can teach them what to look for. So, we've talked to our principals about it. We think we have it under control. The biggest feedback we got was when the state came for a round of visits about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they were going in 4 or 5 people in a room. And we got them. So we've talked to the state, we've talked to the transformation fund, to try their best to limit it.
and I mean, if it's